The call to arms. In a world where humanity had just begun to explore the vastness of space, an unexpected shadow loomed over Earth. It was a bright morning, and the sun bathed the planet in warm light. People went about their daily lives, unaware of the urgent message being transmitted from the Galactic Council. The Council, an assembly of advanced alien races, had sent an ultimatum. Earth must prepare for an impending invasion. At the United Earth Command Center, located in the heart of a bustling city, a sense of urgency filled the air. Captain Sarah Anderson stood at the forefront of a large room filled with military officers, scientists, and strategists. Her sharp blue eyes scanned the faces around her, each one a mix of determination and concern. Sarah had always been a natural leader, her calm demeanor inspiring confidence, even in the most challenging situations. "Listen up, everyone," she called out, her voice steady and strong. The room fell silent as all eyes turned to her. The Galactic Council has issued a warning. An alien fleet is on its way to Earth, and they have no intention of making peace. We need to mobilize our forces now. Lieutenant James Carter, her trusted second-in-command, stood beside her. With his brown hair and bright smile, he was always ready to lighten the mood, but today his face was serious. "We have less than a month to prepare. Our resources are limited, and we need to gather our fleets quickly." The officers murmured among themselves. Questions and doubts filled the room. "How can we fight against an advanced alien race?" Someone asked. "What if we're not ready?" Sarah took a deep breath, sensing the fear in the room. "I understand your concerns, but we are humanity. We are resourceful, we are resilient, and we will not go down without a fight. Remember our past victories. When we faced challenges, we always found a way to overcome them." With those words, she ignited a spark of determination in her team. As the meeting continued, they began to devise plans for gathering ships and training personnel. Engineers would work tirelessly to upgrade existing technologies, while pilots and soldiers prepared for combat. Across town, in a small workshop, a young engineer named Liam Rise was tinkering with a prototype ship. Liam was known for his inventive mind. He had always been fascinated by technology and had dreams of creating something that would change the world. Today, however, his workshop felt different. The air was thick with tension, and the news of the impending invasion weighed heavily on his shoulders. When Liam heard the call from United Earth Command, he dropped everything and rushed to the command center. The building was filled with military personnel hustling about, each person focused on their tasks. He found Sarah and James in a conference room, where they were discussing the strategies for the upcoming battle. "Liam, good to see you," Sarah said, relief flooding her face. "We need your expertise. We have to optimize our ships for this invasion." Liam nodded, determination shining in his eyes. "I have some ideas that could enhance our weaponry and defenses. If we can increase the speed and firepower of our ships, we might stand a chance against the aliens." The three of them gathered around a table, and Liam pulled out blueprints and diagrams. He explained his concepts, pointing to various sections of the designs. Sarah and James listened intently, their confidence growing with each passing moment. Liam's enthusiasm was contagious. As they planned, the command center became a hive of activity. Soldiers trained tirelessly in simulators, pilots practiced maneuvers, and engineers like Liam worked around the clock. The streets outside the command center echoed with the sounds of emergency broadcasts, announcing the mobilization of troops and resources. Meanwhile, news of the Galactic Council's warning spread across Earth, uniting humanity under a common cause. People gathered in their communities, discussing the threat and sharing stories of bravery. Support poured in from every corner of the globe, and citizens volunteered to assist in any way they could. As the days turned into weeks, a sense of camaraderie blossomed among the people. Humanity was no longer just individuals. They were a united front against a common enemy. Sarah felt a surge of pride as she observed the transformations happening around her. People were coming together, putting aside their differences to protect their home. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, Sarah stood on the command center's balcony. She gazed at the ships being prepared for battle. Each vessel represented the hopes and dreams of humanity. They were not just machines, they were symbols of their determination to fight for their future. "Captain," James said, joining her, "do you think we can do this?" Sarah smiled, her eyes reflecting the fiery sunset. "We will do this, James. Together, we will show the Galactic Council that humanity is not to be underestimated." And as the last rays of sunlight faded, the preparations continued. Humanity was readying itself for the fight of its life. The call to arms had been answered, and they would face the coming storm with courage, unity, and an unwavering spirit. The gathering storm. The days melted into nights, and as the deadline approached, the urgency in the command center intensified. Each officer was working tirelessly, pouring their heart and soul into preparations. Captain Sarah Anderson was determined to leave no stone unturned. They had a mere few weeks before the Galactic Council's fleet would arrive at Earth's doorstep, and every second counted. As the sun rose one morning, casting its golden rays across the command center, Sarah called for a meeting with her top officers. She needed to assess their readiness and ensure everyone was on the same page. "Gather around, everyone," she said, her voice echoing in the large room. Officers quickly assembled, taking their seats. There was a palpable tension in the air, but Sarah aimed to channel that energy into motivation. "First, I want to commend you all for your hard work. We've made incredible progress in just a few weeks," she began. "But we cannot let our guard down. The Galactic Council won't be merciful, and we need to be ready for anything." Lieutenant James Carter stood up, his expression serious. "We've upgraded our ship's weaponry and reinforced the shields. Our fleet is now capable of matching their firepower, but we still need more pilots. Training has been a challenge with the limited time we have." Sarah nodded. "We need to ramp up our recruitment efforts. Call in reserves and anyone with flight experience. We can't afford to have empty cockpits when the battle begins." As the meeting progressed, they discussed their strategy in detail. The officers shared their thoughts and suggestions, each contributing to the final plan. Ideas flowed, and the atmosphere shifted from uncertainty to determination. Meanwhile, across the city in the bustling community center, people were coming together in unexpected ways. Many civilians stepped forward, eager to volunteer. Among them was Ava Lynn, a spirited young woman who had always dreamed of space travel but had never gotten the chance. Now she saw this as her opportunity to contribute. Ava was skilled in engineering, having studied at a prestigious university, and she quickly caught the attention of the command center staff. "I may not be a pilot, but I can help with repairs and modifications," she insisted during one of the recruitment sessions. The officers, impressed by her confidence and skill set, welcomed her aboard. Ava quickly became an integral part of the engineering team. Her innovative ideas helped optimize the fleet's technology further, ensuring that their ships would have the best possible chance in the upcoming confrontation. Back at the command center, tensions were high. As news of the impending invasion spread, fear and uncertainty swept across the nation. Every news channel reported on the Galactic Council, and debates erupted about humanity's response. Some advocated for a peaceful approach, urging negotiations, while others were adamant about preparing for war. One evening, Sarah sat in her office, reviewing intel on the Galactic Council. She noticed how each race within the Council had a reputation. Some were known for their ruthlessness, while others were regarded as more diplomatic. Yet she couldn't shake the feeling that they all underestimated humanity. "Captain," James said as he walked in, interrupting her thoughts, "we just received more intel. The Council's fleet is larger than we anticipated. They have multiple warships and a number of support vessels." Sarah frowned, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down on her. "This is not good. We need to think of a way to outsmart them. Our strength lies in our adaptability. We must use our knowledge of Earth's terrain to our advantage." As the meeting concluded, Sarah felt a renewed sense of purpose. She gathered her team and briefed them on a bold plan. Instead of facing the aliens head-on in space, they would draw them closer to Earth, utilizing the planet's geography to gain an advantage. It was risky, but it was their best chance to level the playing field. Days turned into a blur of activity. Troops trained relentlessly, engineers worked day and night, and the fleet prepared for launch. Sarah's confidence grew as she watched her people come together, their spirits rising with each passing day. There was a newfound sense of unity among them, and she knew they were ready to fight. As the final day approached, Sarah stood on the balcony of the command center once more. She watched as ships filled with soldiers, engineers, and pilots were loaded with supplies and weapons. Each vessel was a testament to humanity's strength and resilience. In the distance, she could see the horizon change colors as the sun began to set. It reminded her of the importance of what they were fighting for. They were not just defending their home, they were protecting their way of life, their families, and their future. Tomorrow, we fight, she whispered to herself, a fire igniting within her. As the stars began to twinkle in the darkening sky, Sarah knew that humanity would rise to the challenge. They would show the Galactic Council that they had picked the wrong fleet to mess with. With hope and determination fueling her spirit, Sarah turned back to the command center. The storm was coming, but humanity was ready to meet it head-on. The call to arms had been answered, and they would stand together as one, ready to fight for their place in the galaxy. The calm before the storm. The day before the battle. A tense stillness enveloped the command center. Everyone was busy with last-minute preparations, yet a sense of anticipation hung in the air. It was as if the world itself held its breath, waiting for the storm that was about to break. Captain Sarah Anderson walked through the halls, her mind racing with thoughts of the impending confrontation. She stopped to check on the various departments, ensuring that everyone was ready. The engineers were tightening bolts and running tests on the ships. Pilots were reviewing flight paths, and troops were going over their battle plans one last time. In one corner of the command center, Ava Lynn was hunched over a terminal, analyzing the data from their ships. "Captain," she called, her voice breaking the silence. "I think we found a flaw in the enemy's radar system. If we time our launch right, we can slip past their defenses unnoticed." Sarah's eyes lit up. "That's brilliant, Ava. Make sure the pilots know about this. We can use that to our advantage when we launch." As Ava quickly relayed the information, Sarah felt a wave of pride wash over her. This young engineer was proving to be a vital asset to the team. Her resourcefulness could make a real difference in the battle ahead. Later that evening, the atmosphere shifted as the officers gathered for a final briefing. They took their seats in the large conference room, the walls adorned with maps and battle plans. The flickering lights cast a dim glow over their faces, highlighting their determination. "Listen up, everyone," Sarah began, her voice steady but filled with urgency. "Tomorrow, we face an enemy that believes they can crush us without consequence. They think we are weak because we are new to the galaxy. But they are mistaken. We are not just fighting for ourselves. We are fighting for humanity, for our future, and for those who came before us." A sense of resolve rippled through the room as she spoke. "We have a plan. We will use Earth's terrain to our advantage. Our ships are equipped with the best technology we could muster, and we have the element of surprise on our side." Lieutenant James Carter stood up, his face serious. "I want everyone to remember we are not just soldiers. We are the last line of defense for our planet. When the time comes, trust each other. Look out for your comrades. Together, we will prevail." As the meeting concluded, officers exchanged determined looks, each one steeling themselves for the battle that lay ahead. Afterward, Sarah walked outside to take a breath of fresh air. The sky was clear, and the stars sparkled like diamonds against the dark canvas of the universe. For a moment, she allowed herself to imagine what victory would feel like. The joy of defending her planet, the pride of her people standing together against a common threat. But then, doubt crept in. What if they weren't strong enough? What if their efforts weren't enough to defeat the Galactic Council? Suddenly, she felt a hand on her shoulder. It was Ava. "Captain, you're doing everything you can. We all believe in you. We'll fight for our home together, no matter what happens." Sarah turned to face her, grateful for the young engineer's words. "Thank you, Ava. I needed to hear that. We will fight together, and we will give it everything we've got." As night fell, the command center buzzed with activity. Troops prepared their gear, pilots ran through last-minute checks, and engineers fine-tuned the ships. Laughter echoed through the hallways, a welcome sound that lightened the heavy atmosphere. But as the clock ticked closer to launch time, the laughter began to fade. The reality of what lay ahead loomed like a shadow over everyone. The hours crept by, and as midnight approached, Sarah gathered her team for one last meeting. "This is it, everyone. The calm before the storm. I want each of you to take a moment to reflect on why we are here. Think of your loved ones. Think of our planet. Think of our future. We are not just fighting for survival. We are fighting to protect our way of life." She looked around the room, meeting each officer's gaze. "Tomorrow, we may face overwhelming odds, but I believe in this team. I believe in humanity. We are resilient, and together we can accomplish the impossible." With that, they all shared a moment of silence, each lost in their thoughts. Sarah felt a swell of pride as she looked at her team, realizing they were not just individuals. They were a family bound by purpose. As dawn approached, the command center prepared for launch. Pilots boarded their ships, engineers made final adjustments, and soldiers lined up, ready to take their places. The tension was palpable, but so was the determination. Sarah stood at the command center, staring out at the fleet of ships ready for battle. "Today, we show the Galactic Council that humanity will not back down. We are not their easy prey. We are a force to be reckoned with." The countdown began, and adrenaline surged through her veins. She felt a sense of clarity wash over her. No matter the outcome, they had chosen to stand together. They were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, and they would do so with courage and unity. With a deep breath, Sarah prepared for the storm. The battle for Earth was about to begin, and they would not go down without a fight. The battle begins. The first light of dawn broke over the horizon, casting a golden glow across the fleet. Captain Sarah Anderson stood at the command center, surrounded by her team, as the tension in the air became almost tangible. The time had come. The Galactic Council had issued their ultimatum, and now it was time for humanity to respond. "Fleet Command, this is Captain Anderson." She spoke into the comms, her voice steady but filled with determination. "Prepare for launch. Remember your training and stick to the plan. We fight together, and we fight for our home." The engines of the ships roared to life, shaking the ground beneath them. As the countdown reached 0, the fleet launched into the sky, a synchronized ballet of steel and fire. The pilots maneuvered their ships, climbing higher into the atmosphere, ready to engage the enemy. "Commander Carter, how is the fleet holding up?" Sarah asked, glancing at the tactical display. The screens flickered with data, showing the positions of both their fleet and the Galactic Council's ships. "Everything looks good, Captain," Lieutenant James Carter replied, his hands flying over the controls. "We're ready to engage. The enemy ships are entering our radar range. Hold your positions until I give the signal," Sarah ordered. The anticipation in the room was palpable as they watched the enemy fleet approach. On the view screens, the ships of the Galactic Council appeared, sleek and imposing. Their black hulls glistened ominously in the morning light. As the distance closed, Sarah could see the insignias of the enemy ships, symbols of a force that had dominated the galaxy for far too long. "Now," Sarah shouted, her voice cutting through the tense atmosphere. "Launch missiles." The air was filled with the sound of missiles firing, streaking toward the enemy with deadly precision. The crew watched in awe as the missiles hit their targets, explosions lighting up the space around them. The Galactic Council's ships were caught off guard, And for a moment, hope surged in Sarah's heart. "Keep firing. Don't give them a chance to regroup," she ordered, her voice steady and commanding. The fleet responded, unleashing a barrage of firepower. Sarah felt a rush of adrenaline as she saw their strategy working. The Galactic Council was reeling from the unexpected assault. However, just as hope began to bloom, the enemy regrouped and returned fire. Lasers sliced through space, and explosions erupted around them. "Evasive maneuvers," Sarah shouted, her heart racing as she watched the chaos unfold. Ships danced around each other, dodging enemy fire. "Captain, we're taking heavy damage," Ava Lind reported from the engineering station. "Shield levels are dropping fast." "Reinforce the shields," Sarah commanded. "We need to hold our ground." The battle raged on, a chaotic clash of wills in the void of space. Sarah's heart raced as she maneuvered her ship, dodging enemy fire while coordinating the fleet's attacks. The sight of her team working together fueled her determination. "Look out!" James shouted, pointing at a Galactic Council ship that had maneuvered into firing range. "Evasive action," Sarah ordered, and the ship swerved just in time to avoid a barrage of laser fire. Despite their efforts, the battle was brutal. Ships from both sides were taking damage. The crew worked tirelessly, checking systems and managing the weapons, all while the sounds of explosions echoed through the ship. "Captain, the enemy is regrouping," Ava reported, urgency in her voice. "They're preparing for a counterattack. Prepare to launch a second wave of missiles," Sarah commanded, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. "We can't let them gain the upper hand." As they fired again, a wave of destruction rippled through the Galactic Council's fleet, but Sarah knew they couldn't let up. The enemy would retaliate fiercely. Just then, a loud alarm blared through the ship. "Captain, we have incoming missiles," James shouted. "Brace for impact." Sarah yelled, gripping her seat as the ship rocked from the explosion. The shields held, but only just. "Damage report," she demanded, scanning the control panel. "Shield levels are critical, Captain. We can't take another hit like that," Ava said, her voice filled with concern. "Then we need to finish this now," Sarah replied, determination burning in her chest. "Rally the troops. We're launching a full assault." With the command given, the crew sprang into action. Fighters zoomed around, engaging enemy ships in a deadly dance. The air was thick with tension, but Sarah felt a sense of purpose. They were fighting for their home, and they would not back down. As the battle raged on, Sarah's heart swelled with pride. They were holding their ground against the Galactic Council, and even though the odds were against them, they fought with every ounce of strength they had. In the chaos of battle, Sarah realized that they were not just fighting an enemy. They were proving their worth as a species. Humanity had come together in a moment of crisis, and they would not let that bond be broken. "Push forward," Sarah shouted, rallying her team. "We will not falter. We will show the galaxy what humanity is capable of." With that, they surged into the fray, determined to fight until the very end, turning the tide. The chaos of battle surrounded Captain Sarah Anderson and her crew as they navigated the onslaught from the Galactic Council. The stakes were higher than ever, and the flickering lights of the control panels reflected the tension etched on their faces. They were in the heart of a conflict that would define humanity's place in the galaxy. "Status report," Sarah shouted over the roar of the engines and the crackling of communications. "Shield levels are at 30%, Captain," Lieutenant James Carter replied, urgency in his voice. "We can't take many more hits like that. The enemy is regrouping for another attack. Then we need to act fast." Sarah's mind raced as she considered their options. The tide of battle was against them, but she refused to let despair creep in. "Can we reroute power to the weapon systems?" "Affirmative. It will take away from our shields, but we'll have more firepower," Ava Lind, the ship's engineer, answered quickly. "Do it. We need to show them we're not backing down, Sarah ordered, her voice resolute. With a swift motion, Ava began rerouting the power, and the ship hummed with renewed energy. The crew watched anxiously as Sarah made her next decision. Prepare for a concentrated strike on the enemy's flagship. If we can take it out, we can disrupt their command, she declared, rallying her team. The crew worked quickly, locking onto the enemy flagship as they communicated their intent across the fleet. All ships, this is Captain Anderson. Target the flagship and prepare to fire on my mark. The pilots took their positions, the tension in the air thickening as they prepared for the next strike. Sarah could see the enemy fleet beginning to reorganize. They knew they were vulnerable. Now, Sarah shouted, and a chorus of missiles launched from their ships. The projectiles streaked through space, cutting through the chaos, and Sarah held her breath as they soared toward the flagship. Explosions erupted as the missiles struck home. The flagship shuddered violently, but it remained operational. A surge of frustration gripped Sarah. We have to hit it harder. Captain, they're firing back, James warned as the enemy flagship retaliated, sending a barrage of lasers toward their fleet. Evasive maneuvers, Sarah commanded, and the crew scrambled to steer their ship out of the line of fire. They dodged and weaved, narrowly avoiding enemy shots that lit up the dark void of space. Let's do this, Sarah shouted, her determination renewed. Reroute all remaining power to the weapons. We're going to finish this. The crew's response was swift. Ava's fingers danced over the controls, and the ship's power surged back into the weapon systems. The hum of energy filled the cabin, and Sarah could feel the anticipation building within her crew. Target locked on the flagship again, James reported, excitement in his voice. Fire, Sarah commanded, her heart pounding. This time, the impact was devastating. The flagship of the Galactic Council erupted in a fiery explosion, pieces of debris scattering into the void. A cheer erupted from the crew, the sound echoing through the ship. Sarah felt a surge of hope as they watched the enemy's formation break apart. Captain, their fleet is in disarray, Ava exclaimed. They're losing their cohesion. Now's our chance, Sarah shouted. All ships pressed the attack. Let's show them what humanity is made of. With renewed vigor, the fleet launched into the fray. The enemy ships, now confused and scattered, struggled to regroup. As Sarah commanded her team, she could see the tides of battle shifting in their favor. Fighter jets zipped past, engaging in dogfights with enemy ships. The sounds of explosions filled the air, but the crew's spirits soared. They fought with everything they had, fueled by the knowledge that they were defending their home. Captain, we're receiving a transmission, James called out, interrupting the chaos. Put it through, Sarah ordered, curiosity piqued. The screen flickered, revealing a holographic image of a Galactic Council officer, their face contorted with anger and disbelief. Humans, you are outmatched. Surrender now, or face annihilation. A hush fell over the control room as Sarah's eyes narrowed. This was their moment to make a statement. Annihilation, Sarah echoed, her voice firm. You think you can intimidate us? We are not afraid. We fight for our freedom, our families, and our future. We will not surrender. The officer's expression shifted from anger to shock. You will regret this defiance. The transmission cut off abruptly, but Sarah felt a surge of power in her declaration. She glanced at her crew, their eyes filled with determination. They had faced the impossible and emerged stronger. Let's finish what we started, Sarah called out. Focus fire on the remaining enemy ships. We fight together, and we will win together. As the battle continued, the Galactic Council's remaining ships fell one by one. The tide had truly turned. Sarah felt pride swelling in her chest as she watched her crew's teamwork and dedication pay off. But just as victory seemed within reach, a shadow loomed on the radar. Captain, we have an incoming ship. It's massive, Ava exclaimed, her voice trembling. What do you mean massive? Sarah asked, her heart racing. A dreadnought, James replied, panic evident in his voice. It's far larger than any of the ships we've faced. Prepare for battle stations, Sarah commanded, her mind racing. We may have just opened a new chapter in this fight. Stay alert, everyone. This is far from over. The crew braced themselves, ready to face whatever new challenge lay ahead, united in their determination to protect their world. The dreadnought's might. The sudden appearance of the massive dreadnought sent a wave of unease rippling through the crew of the U.S. Valor. Captain Sarah Anderson felt the tension rise in the control room, the hum of machinery blending with the nervous whispers of her team. Status on the dreadnought, she commanded, her heart pounding. A massive ship, Captain, Lieutenant James Carter replied, his fingers flying across the console. It's heavily armed and moving in fast. They're preparing to engage. Can we get an ID? Sarah asked, knowing the importance of information in the heat of battle. It's the Eclipse, flagship of the Galactic Council. Ava Lynn chimed in, her voice tinged with anxiety. We've heard reports of its destruction, but it seems they've sent it back into action. The crew's faces were a mix of determination and fear. The Eclipse was rumored to be one of the most powerful warships in the galaxy, equipped with advanced technology and a devastating arsenal. We can't let it intimidate us, Sarah said, her voice steady. All hands, prepare to defend the fleet. Target the dreadnought and fire at will. The crew sprang into action, their fear replaced by adrenaline. Missiles were armed, and weapons systems powered up as they locked onto the dreadnought. Sarah felt a fire ignite within her, fueled by the knowledge that the fate of humanity rested on their shoulders. The Eclipse glided through space like a dark shadow, its massive cannons glinting ominously in the starlight. Suddenly, it unleashed a volley of energy beams, and the U.S. Valor shook violently as the blasts rocked their ship. Alarms blared, and the control room was filled with the sounds of chaos. Shields holding at 50%. James shouted, trying to maintain composure. Redirect power to forward shields. Sarah ordered, we need to absorb the impact. As the Valor adjusted its energy allocation, Sarah's mind raced. The dreadnought's presence had changed the battlefield entirely. They could not afford to play defensively. They needed a strategy that would exploit their strengths. Commander Lynn, Sarah said, what's the status on our fighters? They're engaging the enemy cruisers, but they'll be outmatched if we don't divert some power to support them, Ava replied, glancing nervously at the radar. Then do it. Launch the remaining fighters and cover them, Sarah commanded. With a swift motion, Ava sent the order through the comms, and the remaining fighter jets soared into the fray. The small ships darted toward the Eclipse, drawing fire from the dreadnought while attempting to flank it. Fighter group, focus on those turrets, came the voice of a pilot over the comms. We need to weaken its defenses before we can attack. The fighters engaged in a deadly dance, weaving in and out of the dreadnought's targeting systems. Sarah's heart raced as she watched the battle unfold on the screens, her crew working together in a display of bravery and skill. Captain, the dreadnought is firing again, James shouted, his voice cutting through the tension. Brace for impact, Sarah yelled, her voice steady. The ship shuddered violently as another wave of energy slammed into them, sending vibrations through the hull. The shields flickered, but they held. Shields at 30%. Ava reported urgently. We can't take much more of this. Captain, if we can create a distraction, we might get a shot at the dreadnought's main reactor, James suggested, his eyes darting over the control panel. It's a risk, but if we time it right. Sarah's eyes lit up. That's the plan. We'll need to coordinate with the fighters to draw the fire. Prepare to execute a high-speed maneuver. The crew nodded, determination etched on their faces. Fighter group, listen up. Sarah spoke into the comms. We need you to create a diversion. Draw the dreadnought's fire toward the outer edge of the fleet. We'll move in for the reactor. Copy that, Captain. We'll do our best, came the reply from the lead pilot. As the fighter swooped in, the U.S. Valor veered sharply to the side, avoiding the incoming fire from the dreadnought. The ship's engines roared, propelling them toward the Eclipse. The fighters took advantage of their maneuver, darting in and out, creating chaos and confusion around the dreadnought. "Now's our chance," Sarah shouted. "Fire all remaining torpedoes at the reactor." The crew braced themselves as the torpedoes streaked toward the dreadnought, a brilliant trail of light illuminating the dark expanse of space. Sarah held her breath as they closed the distance. The torpedoes struck the dreadnought with a massive explosion, sending shockwaves through space. The Eclipse shuddered violently, its exterior lighting up with the force of the impact. "Direct hit. They're losing power," Ava exclaimed, her voice filled with excitement. The dreadnought's response was immediate. It swung its cannons back toward the Valor, but the damage was done. The Galactic Council's flagship was crippled, struggling to maintain its position. "Keep firing," Sarah commanded, her heart racing. "Don't let up now. We need to finish this." The U.S. Valor and its remaining fighters unleashed a barrage of attacks on the Eclipse. The crew fought with renewed vigor, their fear replaced by determination. The dreadnought began to falter, its powerful weapons faltering as the crew of the Valor pushed forward. With one final strike, the Eclipse erupted into a fiery explosion, the remnants scattering into the void. Cheers erupted in the control room, a wave of relief washing over Sarah and her crew. "Captain, we did it," James shouted, pumping his fist in the air. "Yes, we showed them what humanity is capable of," Ava added, her eyes shining with pride. But just as the victory settled in, Sarah's instincts tingled. "Stay alert. This battle isn't over yet." The remaining enemy ships began to retreat, but a flicker on the radar caught her attention. Another fleet was approaching fast, larger and more powerful than the last. "Captain, we've got incoming ships," Ava warned, urgency in her voice. "Prepare for battle stations," Sarah shouted, her heart racing once more. They had won a significant battle, but the war was far from over. Humanity had faced the impossible and emerged victorious, but they were now on the brink of an even greater conflict. "Let's see what they've got," Sarah muttered under her breath, preparing to lead her crew into the fray once again. The final stand. As the remnants of the Galactic Council's flagship, the Eclipse, disintegrated in the cold expanse of space, Captain Sarah Anderson gathered her crew around the control panel of the U.S. Valor. The atmosphere in the control room was electric with adrenaline and triumph, but it was tinged with apprehension. The victory was bittersweet, as new threats emerged on the horizon. "Captain, I've got a visual on the incoming fleet," Lieutenant James Carter reported, his fingers dancing over the console. The display illuminated their screens with an array of blips, signaling a much larger armada approaching at an alarming speed. "Distance?" Sarah inquired, her heart racing as she focused on the holographic display. "They're about 5 minutes out, Captain. It looks like a full-scale invasion fleet," Ava Lynn added, her voice steady despite the urgency in her eyes. "Prepare for battle stations," Sarah commanded, her voice unwavering. "We've just taken down one fleet. We can't let our guard down now. Let's show them that humanity won't back down." As the crew rushed to their stations, Sarah's mind raced. This was a pivotal moment for humanity. They had fought fiercely and earned their place in the galaxy, but the true test of their resolve lay ahead. "Commander Lynn, can we count on reinforcements from the remaining ships?" she asked, glancing at the tactical display. "I sent out distress signals, but we can't count on them arriving in time," Ava replied, determination etched on her face. "We have to hold the line." "Right. Let's focus on what we have," Sarah said, rallying her crew. "We'll create a perimeter and protect Earth's remaining fleet. We won't let them reach us." "Captain, the enemy is hailing us," James said suddenly, breaking Sarah's concentration. "They want to negotiate." Sarah narrowed her eyes. "Negotiate? They just lost a dreadnought. Why would they want to talk? Maybe they're trying to buy time to regroup, Ava suggested. It could be a trick. Let's not take the bait, Sarah decided. We're not here to negotiate. We're here to defend humanity. Just then, the enemy ships came into view. They were massive, adorned with intimidating weaponry and bristling with technology that made Sarah's heart race. The Galactic Council had sent their strongest fighters to crush any resistance. Ready all weapons, Sarah commanded. Engage the enemy on my mark. The crew tightened their grips on their consoles, adrenaline coursing through their veins. They were outnumbered but not outmatched. The U.S. valor was a symbol of humanity's resilience, and they were prepared to fight for their existence. Engage, Sarah shouted, and the ship erupted with a flurry of energy blasts and missile launches, lighting up the darkness of space. The first wave of enemy ships retaliated with overwhelming force. Energy beams streaked across the void, slamming into the Valor with bone-rattling impact. Alarms blared, and the ship shuddered under the assault. Shields holding at 40%. James yelled, sweat beading on his forehead. We need to redistribute power to the aft shields. Do it, Sarah commanded, her heart pounding in rhythm with the chaos. Get our fighters out there. We need them engaging the flanks. The fighter pilots launched from the Valor, maneuvering into the fray with impressive skill. Sarah watched as their ships darted between the larger enemy vessels, firing torpedoes and laser blasts. Each explosion filled the screen with a brilliant flash of light, a testament to humanity's indomitable spirit. Captain, the enemy is concentrating fire on our starboard side, Ava warned, her voice urgent. Redirect power to those shields. Sarah ordered, her mind racing. They were holding their ground, but the enemy was relentless. The U.S. Valor danced through space, avoiding incoming fire while retaliating with equal ferocity. Sarah's focus was absolute. With every order, every command, she felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her shoulders. Just as it seemed like they were gaining the upper hand, a colossal warship emerged from the enemy fleet. The vessel dwarfed even the Eclipse and looked like a fortress on the move. What in the galaxy is that? James exclaimed, eyes wide with disbelief. It must be their command ship, Ava replied, her voice filled with dread. We need to take it down quickly before it can unleash its firepower. Rally the fighters. Everyone focus fire on that ship, Sarah commanded, determination surging through her. We can't let them regroup. The Valor surged forward, joining the other ships in a desperate assault against the monstrous warship. The air was thick with tension as they fired everything they had. Explosions rocked the enemy ship, but it held strong, returning fire with devastating blasts that lit up the void. Shields are down to 20%, James shouted, panic creeping into his voice. Divert auxiliary power to the forward shields. Sarah commanded, her voice steady. They needed to hold on just a little longer. The fight raged on, both sides taking heavy damage. The crew of the Valor fought with everything they had, pushing their ship to the limits. Sarah's resolve was unwavering. They were fighting not just for themselves, but for the future of humanity. Then, in a moment of desperation, Sarah noticed something. The command ship had exposed its reactor core. That's it, she shouted, a spark of hope igniting within her. If we can target that, we might just take it down. Captain, that's a long shot, James said, disbelief in his voice. We can't take another hit. We have to try. Sarah replied, her eyes blazing with determination. We're not going down without a fight. Prepare to fire torpedoes at the reactor, she commanded, her heart racing as the crew scrambled to lock on to the target. The fighters regrouped around the Valor, forming a protective formation as they moved in closer to the enemy command ship. On my mark, fire. The Valor shuddered as the torpedoes launched, streaking through the chaos toward the reactor. Now, Sarah shouted. The torpedoes hit their mark, and a blinding explosion erupted from the command ship. The shockwave rippled through space, sending debris flying in all directions. Cheers erupted in the control room, but Sarah knew better than to celebrate just yet. Stay focused. Keep an eye on the remaining ships. As the debris cleared, Sarah felt a surge of hope. They had struck a significant blow against the enemy, but the battle was far from over. The remaining enemy ships began to retreat, but a larger, more powerful ship emerged from the shadows. Sarah's instincts tingled with unease. They had won a hard-fought battle, but the fight for humanity was just beginning. Prepare for another assault, Sarah commanded, her heart racing. We will fight for our survival, and we will not back down. The crew nodded, determination etched on their faces. They had faced the impossible and emerged victorious. But the war was far from over. Humanity's spirit burned bright, and they were ready to show the galaxy that they were a force to be reckoned with. Let's show them what we've got, Sarah yelled, leading her crew into the fray once more, ready to defend their home and their future.